Ak si pamätáte prvý diel, tak viete, že si treba nasadiť obidve slúchadlá, nie tak ako ja to mám nasadené, že iba na jednom uchu.
To say that Senua's next story is an immersive one would be an understatement. During my recent hands-on preview, I was able to sample Hellblade II's practically palpable atmosphere.
Kámo, poďme sa vrátiť kúsok naspäť. Tie nechty, pozeraj sa na tie nechty. Také detaily mám strašne rád, že proste vidíš, že má ohryzené nechty až úplne na mäso a vidíš tam také tie tmavé fliačky na koncov nechtov.
Atmosphere, delivered via immersive visual and audio.
Hellblade, presne takto sa cítim, keď si zahúlim, tak to by si nemal húliť v tom prípade, peco.
Techniques. In fact, immersion is the word that powers Ninja Theory's sequel. Everything from its character-focused storytelling, high-fidelity art design, and meatier revamped combat is there to envelop you in Senua's world. It's a mantra instilled in the team by studio head Dom Matthews.
Kámo, prečo som si myslel, že to je Tari? Prečo som si myslel, že toto je Tari, úplne sa na neho podobá, nie? Takto z profilu.
Head Dom Matthews. The technology and the techniques that we push here are in pursuit of immersion, he explains. So the questions that we ask ourselves at all times in the game is, what's the story that we want to tell? And then how do we utilize the tools and the creativity that we have available to us to tell that story?
K tomuto by som rád povedal, že story bude určite v Hellblade Senua Sacrifice dôležité, ale myslím si, že hráči, ktorí sa na toto tešia, očakávajú od toho skvelú grafiku. Očakávajú od toho audiovizuálny spektákel, to znamená nielen grafika, ale aj tie zvuky proste. Nech ti to ide surround proste, nech záleží na tom, z ktorého slúchadla ti čo hrá a tak ďalej. Tie šepty, nech to vybuduje poriadnu atmosféru. A story až na 3. mieste, podľa mňa osobne. Hlavne nech je to poriadny audiovizuálny spektákel, to je to, čo od toho očakáva väčšina ľudí. To je asi to, čo od toho očakávam ja po tom, čo som hral jednotku.
Tools are used in a honed, focused way to ensure Hellblade 2 doesn't lose sight of its goals. We want to stick to that kind of very immersive narrative experience, says VFX director Mark Slater Tunstall. We know our skill sets, we know the sort of people in the team, so let's not go crazy and make a massive open world game. Let's keep it really kind of controlled, immersive, and true to what we're trying to do as storytellers. While Hellblade 2 remains a small game, at least in comparison to its first-party powerhouse peers, it has widened its scope over that of its predecessor. Senua's journey will be a lot less isolated this time around, with other humans turning up along the way to share in her story. Matthews explains, one of the things that we really wanted to explore in Hellblade 2 was when you've got someone like Senua, who has a unique model of the world and a unique perspective of the world, what happens when that comes into contact with other people's models of the world?
Zaujímavé. Ono, prakticky celú prvú hru si nestretol žiadny iný charakter. Žiadnu inú postavu, žiadne NPC nebolo v celej hre. Celé to bolo iba o Senui, prípadne o jej nepriateľoch. Proste keď si niekoho strel, tak si ho zabil. Ak tu budú ďalšie postavy, tak to bude celkom zaujímavé, celkom shift, celkom odklon od toho prvého dielu.
You're not.
He doesn't know. He doesn't see the signs.
There is no way.
It's a new challenge that the actress who brought Senua to life, Melina Jurgens, embraced. She credits the new studio space at Ninja Theory, which was built on the success of the first game, for aiding with that process. I think having a new stage enabled us to just have more characters, she says. Before we were shooting in a little meeting room in our old office. It was just me on set as an actor, maybe...
Čau Mikrom, čau Vesto, čau Kiko, nazdar, všetci, koho som ešte nepozrel, Balu, hello.
3 or 4 more people on set, so it was very intimate, very private. Now we've got this custom-built massive stage, so that allows us to have more actors in motion capture, have a stunt team, do our own builds, like hang stuff from the ceiling. There's just so many more possibilities that we can do now.
Kokos mega by som sa niekedy zúčastnil takéhoto nakrúcenia, kde sa používa green screen, kde sa používajú tie proste postroje, ktoré snímajú body motion a tieto veci. Strašne zaujímavé mi to príde, niekedy by som tam chcel byť nejako postava, alebo nie ako jeden z tých ľudí, ktorí to tam zabezpečujú, ale len sa pozrieť proste na takú výpravu.
Of a wider roster of characters should make Hellblade's world feel more populated and lived in, and as a result, push that sense of immersion. Narrative elements like these new characters go hand in hand with more technological solutions, many of which have been made possible thanks to Ninja Theory's transition to Unreal Engine 5. The software has enabled the team to both recreate real-world locations with extreme detail and bring the wildest parts of their imagination to life. As a creator, UE5 is amazing, Slater Tunstall explains. We can kind of dig in and use parts of the internal screen rendering to do some interesting effects. And yeah, obviously the real-time nature of all the lighting, and now a lot of our effects can be lit as well. It just beds everything in, and everything just fits together much more nicely. Nature has been a big influence for the studio, particularly the stunning vistas of Iceland. But the pursuit of amazing AAA video games often looks to cinema as much as reality. The filmmaking techniques of director Robert Eggers are of particular inspiration to Dan Atwell, Ninja Theory's environment art director. We really like his ideas of the methods that he used within the Northman's environment, he says, going on to recount a tale of Eggers demanding a film's prop department craft replicas of excavated historical swords, rather than making blades based on mere historical theory. Doing that research and making...
Z akého filmu to bolo, tieto ukážky? Island alebo Nový Zéland? Možno obidve, ale na Islande sa to robilo určite. Tie reálie, tie miesta. Ale z akého filmu boli toto ukážky? To absolútne niečo Viking? A to niečo nové? Cigán? Koľko dislikeov a lajkov na to video? I don't know. Staňa nazdar, dobré ránečko. Kokos ríže emote.
As grounded in that sense as possible, we really like his ideology.
Vikingovia? To tí pôvodní z... počkaj. To nemôže byť tí pôvodní s Antoniom Banderasom, či?
It will come as no surprise to learn then that Ninja Theory makes physical props of its own. On a tour of the developer's studio, I was shown era-appropriate Celtic and Viking outfits, which had been woven on wooden looms using materials commonly used in the 9th century such as hemp. These were then scanned into the game to allow their digital counterparts to be rendered as realistic as possible, something further aided by the studio's switch to Unreal Engine 5. Combined with many other artistic and technological approaches, including building rocks from hundreds of photographs taken on location in Iceland, it all makes Hellblade II undeniably one of the most graphically impressive games I've ever played. Its character models and lighting effects in particular stand out from the crowd.
Vyzerá to úžasne zatiaľ. Ťažko to hodnotiť z videjka.
What do you want me to do?
Pretože aj YouTube požerie nejakú tú kvalitu, ale myslím si, že to bude vyzerať úplne skvelo.
Jurgens herself even made the trip out to Scandinavia to take in the harsh surroundings and store those memories for when it came time to reflect on them during her performance. It's very windy, it's rainy, there's sharp rocks everywhere, she recalls. It's quite a daunting place to be, so I actually got frightened when I was out there in that stormy weather, and I try to remember that when I perform. So if there's a scene with rain, I try to squint my eyes as if it's raining or windy and just try to remember that trip to Iceland and how terrified I was feeling in that environment. I think the technology is so advanced now as well that I don't need to overact. It picks up every little eye twitch or lip shake or finger movement. This very real grounding only serves to make the firmly otherworldly shine even brighter though. Once again, we can see parallels between Ninja Theory and cinema. Some of the reference footage the studio
Ty vole, ja chcem ísť na Island, čo ja sa tam chcem ísť pozrieť, čak pozri sa, ako to vyzerá. Len čo som počul, tak Island je celkom dosť drahý, ty kokos.
Shot in Iceland is of the same locations used by Ridley Scott to craft the planet in Prometheus, which too used grounded reality to help pronounce its supernatural elements. Horrors of a completely different alien variety are no stranger to Senua though, and some of her nightmarish visions will be familiar to those who played the original. Trying to come up with visual things based on people's descriptions of hallucinations is a really interesting challenge, says Slater Tunstall. That's where you can lean on some of the new features of Unreal 5 and have all the geometry you want to replicate those things. Like in the Leap of Faith demo we did last year, with all the repeated rock patterns as the voice is speaking. That would have been trickier beforehand.
What is going to happen? It's time to find out. How can we make it happen? It's time.
Treba ale povedať, že chápem, že je to celá tá hra, akože, čo sa storyline týka o Senuinej psychickej poruche v podstate. Ale dúfam, že to nebude až moc halucinačný úlet, pretože v prvom dieli si v podstate nevedel až do samého konca, že o čo tam ide. A tuto, keď to bude úplná halúza, proste budú tam obrovské preludy a neviem, čo všetko môžem, bude sa objavovať na miestach z ničoho nič, tak by som povedal, že to môže trošku kaziť atmosféru do určitej miery, ale zase, hej, nehral som to, nevidel som ešte, ak to bude v praxi vyzerať, je možné, že moc nad tým filozofujem a že v skutočnosti to bude poňaté úplne skvelé.
A large offering of Hellblade II's horrors makes themselves apparent during combat, where hulking attackers throw axes and spit fire at you as hell encompasses the arena in shadows of death. It's an area that the team knew they needed to focus on to make it as immersive as possible in Hellblade II. The question was, how do we utilize combat as a tool to tell the story, to enhance the story, to move...
Podľa toho, čo som videl pred chvíľkou v tomto kombate, tak to bude to vyzerať asi tak, že to bude presne to isté, čo v prvom dieli. Dodge, block, sek, dodge, sek, proste na tento štýl, čo zás až tak veľmi mi to nevadí. Nemusí byť každý kombat, ako z Witchera 3 napríklad. Alebo z Dark Souls, keď sme pri tom.
Team knew they needed to focus on to make it as immersive as possible in Hellblade II. The question was, how do we utilize combat as a tool to tell the story?
Mne to vôbec nevadí tento fight model. Mne tiež nie v zásade. Je to veľmi jednoduché, ale je to fajn.
I think games traditionally can at times be segmented from gameplay, story, gameplay, story, gameplay. For us, the approach has been, how do we have every step be meaningful for the story? It was starting with that mindset and thinking about what does that combat system look like when at the forefront of our minds is turning a narrative through it. Battles in Senua's Saga are exclusively one-on-one affairs, but in the background, scenes are playing out with their own stories to tell, whether that be the untimely demise of a villager or the continuation of a horrific ritual. The trick is to not...
Aký prechod, kámo, medzi cinematikom a gameplayom. Toto je cinematik a zrazu to prejde do gameplaya, pozeraj.
Untimely demise of a villager.
Tuto zomre villager, zrazu fightíš ty.
The trick is to not make these vignettes a distraction from the fight itself.
V God of War to bolo urobené, ja nepoviem, že plynulejšie, ale také prirodzené to bolo v God of War. Tuto by to prišlo také zvláštne trošku.
And that's achieved through engaging swordplay. Every combat animation has been recorded through performance capture, meaning every swing of Senua's sword is one of many skillfully executed by the talented stunt team. When visiting Ninja Theory's motion capture stage, I got to see some of this fight choreography in action, and let me tell you, they don't hold back. Things started steadily enough with...
No, mám taký dojem, že by som sa mal zamestnať v IGN, keď sa niekedy chcem pozrieť na takéto natáčanie.
A few sword-on-axe clashes, but swiftly escalated in their violence. The real-life action was impressive, just as it was minutes later when I saw it translated into the game. There's a real heft and flow to combat in Hellblade II that wasn't quite there in its predecessor, and that's largely thanks to this newfound approach. It's been a long time since 2017's Senua's Sacrifice, but Ninja Theory is a studio focused on getting the small details right, hoping they all add up to an impressive whole. Over the past 7 years, they've increased the size of their team and upgraded the facilities and technology at their fingertips. All of the immersive techniques the improvements provide are in service of Senua's story. Not only is the studio looking to create a fun game for players to enjoy, but it's also seeking to use its platform to raise mental health awareness through Hellblade's depiction of psychosis.
Hej, to sa mi niečo marí vlastne, že aj prvá hra upozorňovala na to, že proste treba dbať na svoje psychické zdravie a to je dobré, že sa snažia zlepšovať svet skrz svoju videohru, okrem toho, že sa snažia samozrejme zarobiť nejaké tie prachy.
A hallucinatory mental health condition that Senua experiences. It's a cause close to Jürgen's heart, and one she's very keen to share widely. Games can be more than just entertainment, she states. You can make a game that sparks conversations, tackles difficult subjects, and just raise awareness about certain conditions such as mental health. I'm proud of just having the honour of representing the mental health community, making sure that I do it in the best way possible, the most realistic way possible. Don't let them down, and make them proud as well.
Senua, would you give your life for these outsiders?
In my darkest hour, it was an outsider who saved me.
For more on Hellblade 2, check out our preview, and for everything else, stick with IGN.
A čo tak nejaký dátum vydania? Nenašiel by sa? Poďme sa pozrieť, či máme dátum vydania, chat. Rýchly Google search. Dobré videjko každopádne. Som rád, že som sa zase niečo dozvedel o Senua Sacrifice. Budem sa o to viacej tešiť, ale čo ten dátum vydania? Hellblade 2 release date 21. máj, to nie je tak ďaleko, ty vole. To nie je tak ďaleko. Alright, počkáme si na niečo viacej. Anyway. To je ďalšia hra, na ktorú sa môžeme tešiť tým pádom.